In an earlier video, I showcased working memory model, and in this video I'd like to summarise a little bit more about working memory model and why it's important. Working memory model is commonly used by psychologists and people connected to education and psychology within education to give insight about the ways in which memories may be processed or may be stored or in various ways recalled. So a strength of the theory is that it anticipates a number of observed phenomena, and it has been experimentally repeated in various ways. So roughly speaking, the theory says that there's an auditory route to memory and a visual route to memory, and that the two may act largely independently from each other and only occasionally interact, and usually speaking, if something is consistent with both the visual and the auditory input, it's particularly memorable. That's one of the reasons why films tend to be memorable, because they're giving us visual information and auditory information, for example with sound at key points in the story, and this makes it especially memorable. If there is a disconnection between visual input and auditory input, it may be the case that there is processing that's largely parallel. And if the information is, for example, in the same sense format, like highly visual information, it's very difficult to process at the same time. Many people would say it's impossible, and in fact what happens is that you switch attention from one stimulus to the other, or stimuli to the other. Example would be if you're trying to do some kind of analysis of different pictures, you can really only look at one picture at a time and process its features. So if you imagine being in an art gallery and you're looking at a picture of the Mona Lisa, and then you're looking at a picture by somebody else like Turner, you can really only appreciate the details one picture at a time, or one detail at a time. But you could be listening to what somebody's saying around this. In a similar way, you can really only listen to one conversation at one time. So we might be used to, for example, focusing on the person we're talking to, and we might be used to blending out or kind of muffling out background noise, or we might listen to some other conversation, but we can really only divide our attention in one key area at one time. So this theory tells us that when we're trying to remember something, it may be worth considering if we can put it in a visual way that's memorable to us, or in an auditory way to us. And it may be the case that we have a preference for the information in one way or another. As much as possible, however, it may well be worth trying to link something that we already know together with this phenomenon. So if we can think about something known to us visually, it may well be a good representation to try and link it to something we know. So if you're trying to think about, for example, a simple association for capitals in the world, if you can associate an object you already know, like for example the Eiffel Tower, to Paris, that may be a good hook if you're trying to remember some of the key details. Even better if you can make it linked to something that you already care about. So without going into too much detail, one of the things that this theory, working memory model, is compatible with is the idea that there is a lower load on memory or on available psychological resources for things that you care about or which you already know. So if you already care passionately about, say, an old film with Audrey Hepburn like Roman Holiday, it may be easier to remember information like how to get around Rome, or some feature you want to remember about Roman culture, by thinking about key scenes in that film and how that resonated with you. So one of the many good things about this theory is it gives us some key ideas about how things might be memorable for us. So thinking about a visual input, an auditory input, possibly something that we already care about can be used as the basis for forming a new association, and that we can practice this to enhance our recall. In a way it sounds obvious, but in a way it's also useful to have this summarised, because when you're trying to remember something at pace, it can really be worth thinking, what do I need to do without having the strain of the recall, and instead just focusing on the activity at hand. So I thought it was worth doing a little positive evaluation of the working memory model, and I'm going to end the video just there.